Welcome back to the Ride and Laugh podcast. If you love mountain biking, you are in the right place. Picture your last really fun group ride. You're back at the parking lot. The Stoke is high. Everyone's talking about bikes, tech, progression, nutrition, trails, jumps, drops. That's what we talk about every week on the Ride and Laugh podcast. You love bikes. We love bikes. Let's drop in. Sage, how are you?
Danny, I finally got to a bike park. First one of the season. So grateful, man. I'm doing awesome. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome as well. I am excited to hear about your bike park journey. I couldn't wait for the podcast. You already did tell me a couple of the highlights, and it's awesome. The progression is awesome. Everybody, listeners, anything is possible.
Yes.
Sage is doing it. I'm doing it, and listeners are doing it. We get a lot of comments and a lot of emails and a lot of interesting things. People saying, I'm doing things that I didn't think I could do. I'm overcoming things. I'm going with intuition. I'm going with flow, and the skills are in there, and It's awesome.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
We're
here for it. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. I have a question. This is something that I realized I was doing maybe a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And I've been meaning to bring it up. Let me know if you do this, and listener, let me know if you do this. Okay. I am on Strava. I am on the app Strava, and during my ride, as the ride's going on, I'm labeling my ride. I'm like, okay, this is what the title's going to be. And I'm like halfway down the ride. You know what I mean? I can't even tell you how many times I've been like, okay, this is what the label's going to be. And then at the end of the ride, you have a mechanical and you're like, oh no, I gotta like, but I realize that like, I'm constantly putting a label on the ride. I'm constantly almost putting it into a box on what this ride is. Mm-hmm. I'm already labeling it. And in a way, I'm already like seeking approval from all my Strava friends. You know, this is what I'm going to put here as this label of this ride, you know, or of this part of my life for that matter. When we label things, we limit them.
Yeah.
Do you do that at all? Do you find yourself doing that?
I'll take it one step further. Sometimes I'll think of a good Strava title on a different ride, and I'm like, oh, that would be good for. It's terrible. But you know what, though? You're setting expectations when you do that, you know, because it's like, oh, okay, now I have to. So, you know, maybe that's not a good thing. I don't know, but I definitely do it.
So it's just like recognizing thoughts that don't serve me. And I think that's just a conditioned thought pattern that I've been doing for years and years and years. I've been on Strava for a long time. I've done a lot of solo rides, and I used to do these big giant rides at Wissahickon Bike Park in the morning. And I would get a lot of these comments like, oh, I can't believe you did that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and it feels good. It feels good to get complimented.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
But at the same time, I think when I start thinking about what I'm going to call the ride when the ride's not over yet, in a way it's really, I don't think it's healthy. Well, I think it's showing me that I'm lost in thought and to come back to the moment. I'm not focused on the ride if I'm determining what I'm going to call the ride.
I mean, yeah, but how long does that thought last? I thought you were going to say, you know, is there a difference between setting a goal and setting an expectation? You know, so if I'm thinking of a ride title, for me, that's more of a goal rather than an expectation. And I can differentiate. Oh, I can't say that word, but you know what?
Differentiate.
I can do that between the two. You know, for me, like when I set a goal, it's something that I'd like to achieve, but I don't hold myself to an expectation. Has a more negative connotation in that I'm expecting myself to do something, and therefore I am letting myself down if I don't. Right. So it's like, yo, I'm going to go to the bike park. I'm expecting to hit this jump. That's different than saying my goal is to be able to clear this jump. I can give myself a little bit of grace if I don't achieve that goal. So how does that relate to the Strava title? That's the deal, right? If I'm thinking of a title, first of all, it's never more than like 2 seconds. I'm not like constantly like wordsmithing it in my head.
Yeah. Well, I am. I mean, you know, you don't understand the level of overthinking that's going on in this brain. Like this. Yeah, I think way too much, which is a gift, because every time I do now that I'm bringing some awareness to it, let it go. Yeah, let it go. I just noticed that like every time I'm out, I'm thinking about what am I going to call this and how's it going to look on Strava too. You know,
Oh,
I'm at
I
Desert
do
Trails
that.
and I'm like, should I climb up a different way so it looks a little bit more interesting on Strava? Like, what? And then who really cares? Nobody cares. You know what I mean? Like, I'm almost 50 years old. Who cares what my Strava looks like? I don't think
Man,
anyone cared when I was 30, but
I
it's
do
just such a
that.
waste of energy.
I definitely, I like to reach 2,000 feet not on a recovery ride, but like on my rides. I do have this like weird thing in my head where it's
Yeah.
like, if I don't reach 2,000 feet, it's not a real ride, which is like so dumb. It's so ridiculous. It's
Dude,
an arbitrary
you
number.
used to say, yeah, you used to say these sorts of things all the time. Like, we have a reputation. Like, you wouldn't let us go back to the parking lot because you needed to get. It used to be 3,000 feet. Everybody, it used to be 3. Thank God you lowered it to 2 because 3 was brutal. But you were like, we got a reputation, and I was like, to who? I don't think anybody cares.
No,
But
they
you
don't.
did. You really cared.
Yeah.
That was Sage 1.0. Sage 2.0.
Yeah. Sessioning.
2,000 feet instead of 3. Stage 3.0 is not going to care, or maybe go down to 1,000 feet.
I know. I don't know. We've definitely grown up a lot, you know, and that's, you know, there was a lot of things that kind of constituted why I had those numbers in my head, and one of them was, you know, certainly how it looks to everybody else, but more importantly, back in those days we were more XC than we were enduro, and so part of our riding was, you know, reaching certain goals and pushing certain limits. And to me, getting to that number meant that I had a good workout.
I think it's a self-worth thing.
Oh, for sure.
If you're wanting to show people on Strava that you rode a certain amount or a certain elevation, then you're looking to get your self-worth from other people. You're looking to get your self-worth externally instead of understanding I'm worthy. And anyone that's been listening to the podcast long enough knows that I've been going through that journey. We've been going through that journey, but me specifically, I can speak to in my mountain bike career.
Yeah.
And I feel it so much.
Yeah.
That letting go of what other people think and getting that worthiness from them. We talked about this a lot in the fall at Natalie, you know, why I was like, one of the reasons I was compelled to do that slab when I might've been more on the fence than I should have been, not 100% committed. And, you know, we just kind of broke that down, and I was like, it's a self-worth thing. I'm looking to get approval from these other people and there's no logic to it. It's just like an old program from when I was a little boy that's just running, that I have to understand I'm worthy, and nothing I do on the bike, whether I'm alone or with other people, nothing I do on the bike is going to change how worthy I am. Listener, you're worthy.
Yeah.
You're completely worthy. You're here. You're living on this planet. You are completely worthy of all good things. And nothing we do on the bike changes that.
Yeah.
And then you start from there. And it's liberating, but it is, for me, it's a constant reminder. I have to constantly remind myself.
Yeah.
Because that old program still is running. And so it's like I catch it. And one of the ways I think I caught it recently was caring about the Strava title, thinking about the Strava title. What are people going to think on Strava? And then let me tell you, when I actually put it on Strava, I don't check to see how many kudos I got.
Yeah.
Like, if I get a nice comment, I'll reply, but like, I don't really care. I mean, like during the ride, I care more than I actually care. It's just, these are just old background programs that are running in our brains. And we sometimes, whether it be on the bike or in life, you just have to recognize it. Oh, wait, this isn't serving me because it's bringing me out of the present moment. I'm actually on the ride now.
Yeah.
I'm not home on my computer thinking about what to label it. I'm actually on the ride. Let me just let that go and enjoy it.
Yeah. Pictures and video too. That's the other thing, right? When we're putting up our Strava rides, you know, I'm often like,
yeah,
can I get a cool picture? Can I get a cool video? You know, it's like all this like weird pressure. I don't know. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing either. It's only bad if you put a ton of weight behind it, you know, and I'm at a point in my life now where I do feel like I have a lot of self-worth, and I don't need to prove myself to anyone. I got a library of videos, you know, that show exactly what I'm all about. And I don't need to make every Strava post like, hey, look at what I did. And it's not. The pictures and the video for me are just a way to capture the day, remember the day. And, you know, if something cool did happen, then of course, you know, I'm going to put it in there. But yeah, I don't put as much weight into the title or the videos, at least as much as I did, you know, when I was younger.
I think the same thing for social media too, for, you know, people that are using Instagram or what other social media, but, you know, when they're putting something up there, you know, and if there's pressure that they want to, you know, get a certain amount of feedback and that sort of thing. And that can be a real slippery slope as well. So listeners, let us know. Do you think about these things while you're on the ride?
Yeah.
But what you're going to name your ride, or how that's going to, if you're going to be able to use that on Instagram, or if you have a POV, if you're shooting camera, a video, I want to be able to use this. So I want to be able to do this, and then all of a sudden, maybe you're moving away from intuition and you're moving into expectation. So curious on some feedback on that. I think it's a big deal these days.
Yeah, I think so too, man. Absolutely.
All right. We're going to be reviewing our last podcast, No Dabs and Steep Slabs, How to Stay Perfectly Centered on Your Bike at All Times.
Yeah.
Which is season 2, episode 3. And that was really fun.
Yeah.
We have first comment from Low Key MTB, which our fans know him as, and we love him as Nicky Shreds.
Love Nicky Shreds.
Nick, you could change your name as much as you want. You're going to be Nicky Shreds,
Nicky Shreds
on this podcast.
Done.
Nicky Shreds wrote in, I love what Sage said about body position in slabs. We build a muscle memory of things as we ride them. Slabs at steep angles are uncomfortable because they demand us to learn a new memory of body position and muscle stimulation. But the key is it's only uncomfortable until it becomes your common position.
Yeah.
Dan, I think if you force yourself to do it repetitively, the body position will become much more comfortable and overall progress your confidence.
I mean, it's kind of like what you've been doing at Desert Trails too, right? You're just going, it's repetitive. Let's do this jump over and over and over. Slabs are a little bit tougher, right? Because we don't have e-bikes yet. But if you had an e-bike, yeah, then you could, for instance, that Somo slab that we referenced, the South Mountain, slab that we referenced. Like if you had an e-bike, man, you could just go right up and do that slab over and over and over.
You think you could ride up that?
Oh yeah.
I don't think you could ride up that. I think that's a push-up. Really?
Yeah. Yeah. If you had an e-bike, okay. Absolutely. That traction on that rock was just so good, man. Yeah, absolutely. But you get my point. Like, even if you couldn't ride up it, pick another slab somewhere else where, like the Natalie slabs. How many times did Patrick go up and do that slab so that he could tow each one of us in?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting into that body position, I rode with Arturo at sunrise and I had video of him and watching him do some of the lines. Like he's so centered, and then there's almost like a forward aggressiveness.
Yeah.
As the move approaches and gets more consequential, he gets more forward.
Yeah.
And more aggressive, and then is able to really drive the bike where he wants it.
Yeah.
And I noticed the same thing. We did the Sunset Ridge, which is, I would say, the most technical trail, maybe in the valley. People could argue with me because I haven't ridden everything, but of the popular trails, certainly the most technical trail that I've ridden at Halls.
Yeah.
Boulder Dash is technical. Sunset Ridge is like another level of loose, janky, and technical. Jeff Windsor, who rides South Mountain all the time, and he's riding there, constantly. He was like, maybe I should move out of South Mountain on a weekend. And so we talked about going to Halls, actually got him in a vehicle, actually got him to another trail system. And great listener, Jeff Jackson, joined us. Man, did he look smooth.
Yeah.
So centered.
Yeah.
And he was doing that same technique I was talking about Arturo doing at Sunset Ridge. I saw that same thing where he was getting forward and he was able to drive the bike and stay centered. So no matter how steep it's getting, and Sunset Ridge, it's not just steep, it's also loose, and then you're bouncing. It's bumpy. There's a couple moves in there that are just really crazy, really hard, and can really take you off the trail. And but Jeff Jackson looked so good. And then I watched the video of myself doing it, and I'm getting there. I'm close. I completed the line.
Yes.
And I looked pretty good. I mean, we all had dirt on our butts from buzzing. The back wheel was just buzzing your butt. Like I don't think there was any way to avoid it. It's so steep and so janky.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeff Wynn and Jeff Jackson, both of them have this quality about them. And the best way that I can describe it is they're so damn humble. You don't realize how good they are, and it's like you talk to Jeff and you're just like, and then all of a sudden he does this thing and you're like, oh my goodness, like you are such a good rider. It's unbelievable. it really, it's one of those things. I got the pleasure to ride with Jeff Jackson a few times, and he just like, he just does it. And it's just like, it's so smooth. It's so comfortable. And you're just like, what just happened? What just happened? And he's just like, so cool about it. Like, oh yeah, I just did this thing.
Yeah. It's misleading, but I think he's not, I mean, he's really balanced. I think he's a really good athlete. I mean, I think he's really good, got really good coordination and eye-hand coordination and timing.
Yeah.
And he's very good at it. And I think the humbleness, and because I see that, and they're both just like really sweet, nice people. And I think humbleness comes with that a lot of times.
Yes.
But it's also the riders out here, the level of riders out here that we're exposed to are so high that you just feel like you're an average rider. Now, an average rider is not getting down Sunset Ridge. You know what I mean? Like an average rider is not riding up national with no dabs, you know, but there's just, there's so many high level riders here that it really is humbling. Yeah. It's really cool, but it is also humbling at the same time. And let me tell you, we were riding around halls and we were seeing, as we were approaching Sunset Ridge, we saw all sorts of people. It was a weekday or it was a weekend. Sorry. So I think it was a Saturday. And it's a really popular place. Every intersection, there was people. We were meeting people. I'm handing out stickers. We get to Sunset Ridge. Not a single person on the entire trail. Completely empty.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we talked about Sunset Ridge. We talked a little bit about riding the hardtail at Desert Trails, but I got to say that I've been back there twice since we last addressed that. And it's really making a big difference. Yeah. And I'm starting to just get more comfortable on sending those jumps. I think the first time I went, I didn't send the second jump at all. The second time I sent it maybe 3 times, and then I went again and I probably sent it like maybe 6 or 7. Not perfect. I'm still brake checking a little bit. But it's getting there. Yeah, it's getting there, and it's really, really cool because it's really intimidating looking at those jumps. Yeah, it's really intimidating.
I know. Yeah, it's what's incredible is like that line isn't bad. You know, it's like Desert Trails, like as much as we've been bad mouthing it, and just kind of just we've been putting out this like negative vibe, but that intermediate line, it's a good line. It's not perfect, but it's a good line, and it'll get you there. And I'm hoping that hopefully we'll get some listeners that are in that area that would love to join you on some of these rides, because part of progressing is sharing that with other people and helping them. And then who knows, you run into a Colin, they're helping you. Next thing you know, it's like you're sending these jumps even more comfortably. You're not, I don't know how to say what I'm saying, except that I'm just so proud of you for just getting after it and just going out there and getting those jumps like on the hardtail. Like, dude, come on, man. Awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate your encouragement. That was a big moment. That was anxious to awesome, when you called me out on just my fear around that. Yeah. And I was overthinking it. I was thinking about the negative things that could happen instead of what's the best that could happen. And on that podcast, I shifted. At that moment, I shifted to like, oh, let me start picturing clearing these jumps. Yeah. And then we always talk about it. You have to take the action. Okay. I want to get better at jumping. I want to be able to get better at jumping those jumps at Desert Trails, those types of jumps. Take the action, put yourself there. Yeah. And I'm not, it takes several runs. I'll have runs where I case really badly. I have runs where I didn't hit the berms right, and I'm aborting it. And I'm not going into the day saying I need to be hitting both of these jumps or it's not a good day. I'm just going in with no expectations. Let's see what happens. Let's see I'm comfortable. I think I'm at the point now. So I have these mantras, right? What really helps me on those really steep, lippy jumps is focusing on the rear wheel. That was a tip that we got at Phoenixville Bike Park. And a few people have talked about that. You want to make sure that rear wheel leaves the lip of the jump at the same time before you, right? Because if you don't focus on the rear wheel, then it can buck you. Right. It doesn't. So kind of like, I don't know, for me, just focusing on the rear wheel leaving and feeling it leave the jump makes me arc much more comfortably. Yeah. So I didn't over rotate ever. The only thing I would do was maybe case. And if I was going a little bit slow, I would boost. And there was one where I was like, whoa, I got higher than I was comfortable with. Yeah. But so I have these mantras: stay centered, eyes up, don't break, rear wheel.
Yeah.
And I think I'm getting to the point where I need to let them go. Just like your visualization technique, where you visualize something and then you trust it, and then you take that long exhale and then you let it go, and then
I
you
love
ride.
it. Okay. Okay.
So I think I'm getting to the point where I need to stop thinking as much. I think like even the mantras can only take me so far. Eventually, I need to get to the point where I can just clear my mind and start trusting the skills are in there and start trusting that my body's going to do this correctly. Because I'm scared I'm going to over rotate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're so lippy, and I have over rotated on them, not in a little bit, but that was why I was nervous before, when we were originally talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that might have been a full suspension thing also, but
yeah. Shout out to Scott, by the way. That was Scott's suggestion of getting that.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. What a great jumper. Music is a great way to clear your brain. I don't know if you listen to music when you're at the jumps. I'll do that, except that there's so many people at the Phoenix Public Park that like I often have to just keep it off so that I can talk to people. But man, holy crap! I'll get a lyric in my head and I'll just sing the lyric, and that helps to clear the brain of like any kind of thought or anxiety that I have. So yeah, so you do that though.
I do, but I find that like if I'm listening to the music, as soon as I start doing the run, the music's out of my head. Like I'm not. I couldn't tell you what song it was anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I'm playing something on like a earphone, it's interesting because we rode South Mountain. Jeff and I rode a pre-work ride, and we ran into a few guys, and one of the guys' name was Angelo, and I gave him a sticker, and then he through Instagram was like, hey, I listened to one of the episodes, I really liked it, and he said one of the things I do on my ride is sing when I'm starting to do something technical or that's nerve-wracking, right? You sing. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I do that also. I totally sing. Yes. And I just never really thought about it. Like we haven't talked about it. Do you find yourself actually singing a song as you're riding?
We did talk about it, Danny. A while back, we talked about changing the lyrics to Afro Man when we were at Mountain Creek. And we were changing the lyrics. You're right. And it was so funny. Oh my goodness. And it really did help to keep my mind off of these big jumps that we're about to do. For you, I remember you were singing it in the berms because that was something that you wanted to work on. You wanted to get deep into the berms, get low, and kind of really not touch the brakes. For me, I used that song when I was going off those big jumps. I think it's Salvation or Dominion. It's one of those. It has the 3 triple jumps. And I was just like, what? Let me sing this song, get out of my head. It helped a lot, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an excellent point. So I think you get to a point where you're going to have to just trust your skills and just let it go. For me, I think that's what I need to do. I think that the mantras can only get me so far until you need the high level stuff. You need to trust that you can do it. And I'm like kind of on the fence there at Desert Trails. Can I do this without thinking?
Yeah.
Can I really clear my mind and trust my skills and do this, and let me see how that feels?
Yeah, the thing, as you know, I don't really do mantras, but I do have goals that I set. And one of them is right now I'm trying to do a opposite bar turn. I've gotten so used to going to the right. And I noticed in my videos, it's like, okay, every single video is just me turning to the right. And it's like, I'd like to introduce starting to turn to the left. And so it's something that I actually have to tell myself before the jump, which is really awkward. I'm just like, okay, remember to go this way. And it's like, I don't actually say it to myself, but I'm actually thinking it. And it's very distracting, but it's also helpful. Yeah. It's also helpful because I'm going into it with like, do something, even if it's just like a quick twitch. And then you develop that twitch into something a little bit deeper and deeper and deeper. And yeah, it's been helpful. It's not really a mantra, but it's a visual that I'll think about before I go off. And then it's like, I have to remind myself before I hit the jump, like, hey, remember, you're going to go the other way.
And you've never had a situation where like you're so thinking about turning the bars to the left that you screw up the lip, that you like mess up the jump, and you're like, oh, I over rotated because I was thinking about, because that's what I feel like happens to me. I think about something else,
really,
and then all of a sudden, like until that muscle memory, as Nick is saying, low key MTB, Nicky Shreds, until that muscle memory is so in there, that it doesn't matter what you're doing, what you're thinking about, because you just know how to ride that tech. You know how to hit that jump. Yeah. That muscle memory is just cemented in there. And then you can just be like, okay, well, when I'm in the air, I'm going to try to do this. Whatever it be. It could be turning one way, turning another way. It's good. There's a ton of tricks you could do in the air.
Yeah. Yeah. I see, for me, like the moves help me to not dead sailor. You know, if I'm active on the jumps, it helps me to not dead sailor. You know, when I was at Blue Mountain this weekend and I didn't put any moves in, you know, the jumps are so big and so intimidating that I was just literally focusing on don't touch the brakes. And I got to tell you, the next time I go, though, I'd like to start to introduce the moves. You know, there were a few jumps where I was just like over sending it. And I was like, well, this is where if I had a move, you know, I would soak up some of this anxiety and fear because now I'm focusing on something else. It's giving me something else to do rather than just like you're just like, you know, and it's time is a terrible thing. You know, when you're just in the air and just like when you have stuff to do in your brain, like you're just in the air that long where you're just like having thoughts. That's not good. Like I need to soak up that space. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. You don't want to be thinking about what you're going to have for dinner while you're like 30 feet in the air. And putting the move in, definitely it adds a level of comfort. And that's something at Desert Trails I'm trying to do. I do it once in a while, but every time I do it, it feels really good.
Yeah.
It feels really good. It changes the dynamic of how you move in the air. Yeah. And that was a big revelation that we had. That was a big revelation that you and I had where it was like, wow, the move isn't just to look cool. It actually serves like a pretty big purpose. So listener, let us know where you are on your jump journey. If you're starting to put a move in, anything that we can help you with, any questions that you have, you can leave it in the comments. Also, going back to the song, who's listening to music? Who's singing? Is there a favorite song that you have? Does the singing help focus? I'd be curious to get some more feedback on that. I think that was a really interesting point. It could be an interesting topic as well.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I did notice, by the way, when I was at Blue Mountain, I noticed that I was hitting my helmet with the bar turn. I don't know if anybody else is like running into this issue.
What?
But yeah. So on the big jumps, I wasn't doing anything, but on the smaller jumps on the blue level trails, they have smaller tables. I was definitely doing like tables and bar turns. And the very first one that I attempted, I hit myself in the because the chin sticks out like a lot farther. I like knocked myself off balance. I was like, oh, knocked myself out. It was terrible.
Wow.
I don't know if anyone else
has anybody ever done that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Listeners, let us know if anyone's ever done that.
It's terrible.
Sage KO'd himself on the trail.
Yeah. So embarrassing.
All right. We got to get you some softer grips.
Yeah.
Well, our next topic is something that mountain biking, I think we can all relate to. There's here in the valley, there is a trail system we call Halls, and the Halls Trail Alliance does an awesome job of building and working with whoever the local landowners are and land managers on keeping, building new trails. There's already 60 miles of trails, and they're talking about building like another 40 miles. There's new trails going in all the time.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's a great place.
Yeah.
However, the other side of the coin is they occasionally say this feature was not approved. And even though it's been there for a long time and it might be fun, we're shutting it down. And so that goalpost drop that you and I and Mike did, is on a blue trail. It's a black level feature. I guess it wasn't approved. And so they want to shut it down.
Yeah.
And you hear about these sorts of things all the time. In mountain biking, you hear about these sorts of things all the time. And you sent me an Instagram post about trails in California in Marin County, the birthplace of mountain biking. That there's like a lawsuit, and essentially, mountain biking is no longer going to be allowed there. So, what do you do when you ride a trail when you see a trail that you want to ride, but it's closed to mountain bikers? What's the line there?
Well, I mean, that's a little bit different than a feature, right? The difference is like, when you close a feature versus closing down a whole trail is completely. Yeah. When I saw that news when I saw that news that they closed a drop, I actually instantly felt bad for a lot of people because again, that was probably something, that people were trying to work themselves up to. There's not that many drops at Hawes, there just isn't. And that one was a pretty good size. And it was actually, aside the rocks and the landing, it was actually a very mellow drop. Like if you got it clean, it felt really good. It was a really good entry into drops. And that's the thing. Like when you take away features like that, And consequently, trails like that, you're taking away a place where people can progress, people can improve themselves, right? So that drop is a great example because there's not many drops like that. Where can you go to work on drops? And I'm not saying that the HTA should have kept that drop open. They have the reasons. I get all that. But one of the reasons why people do things like that is because where else are you going to go? Like you went to Sunrise and I asked you if they had any wooden features or any man-made features. You said no. That was 4 hours away. Like, where can you go to get features like this? So when they shut down features like that, it's I just feel bad. I just feel bad. I don't know how you feel about that.
I agree with you that is a drop that people were working up to. That moment when Mike had seen it for 2 years.
Yes.
And just hadn't been able to pull the trigger. And then he saw us do it and then he got it. Like, that's a moment.
Yes.
And people work up to those things. And I just think that's really cool. There are other drops. There's drops on South Mountain. There's other places you can find drops. I don't know that that's really one that you would like. It wasn't a beginner level drop. It was kind of an advanced drop. It was janky going in and it had a little bit of a sketch landing. So
for sure.
Yeah. And apparently it was that to get to the drop, there was kind of like a trail that was being hiked up or ridden up. That wasn't an official trail. I guess maybe that was the problem. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
I don't think it really matters why these things sometimes get closed. It's like, how do we handle that?
Well, and also there's a distinction, right? Like that is a natural feature, so around me, I have a trail system at Smedley, and Smedley has gotten dozed at least twice. I've been mountain biking for like 16 years, 17 years, whatever it is. It's gotten dozed twice because of illegal trail building. And there's a difference, right? So there's making a line to get to a natural feature versus like actually bringing in equipment and building jumps. It's a tough one because, the Smedley line is a line that's really dear to my heart. And when I first started jumping, that's where I learned to jump because there was no Phoenixville bike park, and I couldn't afford to pay $60 to go to a jump park every time. And it's far away. This is local, but it wasn't sanctioned, and so you have people rogue building these jumps and on one side of it, it's like, okay, I can understand why a township would want to close that, right? You have liability issues, you have insurance, you have all this stuff, God forbid someone gets hurt. But at the same time, like, where else are you going to go to be able to do this stuff?
Dude, I just thought of it.
Yeah.
I just thought of it.
Yeah.
I have the perfect solution. For every 3 trails that are closed, they build a new bike park, community bike park.
Wouldn't that be great? Oh man. Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah. You want to close another trail? Because now we're only 1 trail away from new bike park. I got the spot picked out. Happens to be right next to my house.
Yeah. But
no, seriously, like if you're gonna close these trails, then open up new ones. And that is what's happening at Hawes. But certainly, like if you're going to close places for where people want to go on mountain bike, if you want to close the trails in Marin, then the community of Marin should be building a mountain bike place.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, how many more basketball and pickleball courts do we need? Like, let's build a mountain bike, a progressive mountain bike park. I've seen these places. I've seen pictures of these places. Desert Trails is kind of one, but there's ones in Colorado and Idaho and Utah that just look awesome. Well, let's build more places like that then. Instead of just saying no, say yes.
I'm 100% on board, and I'm about to throw myself under the bus here. Am I part of the problem? If they banned, because they were talking about it, they were talking about banning, mountain biking at Smed. We've had that conversation at the Wissahickon, which is a huge trail system right outside of Center City. It's where most people, I think, that live in Philadelphia go, and they know about the WIS, and they almost killed mountain biking for everybody at the WIS. And so, if that happens at Smed, am I part of the problem? And that weighs on me. It weighs on me. Could I not jump the jumps? Yeah, of course. But I don't know, man. Where do you fall on that? Like, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, I've certainly have been in a position where I know that this trail is not a sanctioned trail,
Yeah.
but it's really good. So yeah, of course. I mean, we've all. I don't want to listener let us know. You know, what's your feeling on riding illegal trails? And I think different parts of the country have different kind of views on this. You know, like the Northeast, when we were kind of growing up in mountain biking, the Northeast, there was a lot of anti-mountain bike sentiment. You know,
Yeah,
and it was
for
mainly
sure.
driven. It felt like by the equestrians. It was like horses that wanted to keep. You know,
Yeah.
and they had a lot of money and a lot of political sway, and they wanted to keep mountain bikers off the trail because for whatever reasons that they had. And so there was always this battle at like all the major mountain bike spots of which trails we could ride. And then there would be some rogue building, and then there would be and those trails would be great, and you'd be like, oh, I'm riding this new trail, it's awesome, and they put this work into it, and there's jumps and skinnies, and it's fun. And then you start getting like word from other riders that, yeah, they might not allow mountain biking in the whole park now because there's too many rogue trails. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's just like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have been riding that. But it's a tough one. And if you talk to trail builders, a lot of times when you look at a trail network, it's the illegal trails that eventually became legal.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Build every first, trail.
Ask permission later. Yeah.
Pretty much every trail started out illegal. I mean, someone had to build a trail at some point, you know, and it's, you know, and the other thing that trail builders often have to deal with is like the amount of red tape that you have to go through just to get permissions to build trails and then you know, all this stuff. It's almost like if you're in, I don't build, but I've heard from builders, it's almost like better to just build and then ask for forgiveness later, you know, in the hopes that it will get, you know, grandfathered in or whatever it is, you know, and it's like, that's a shame too. You know, it's a shame that it takes that much work to get that builders, we're talking years. We're not talking months. We're talking years with some of these municipalities, you know, getting to build some of these trails. And that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, this is a sport that's good for the community. This is a sport that's good for people.
Yeah,
you know, it's exercise, it's outdoors, it's community, and I think there's starting to be a shift in attitude. How much do you feel that in the Northeast? Because I found in the Southwest, like mountain biking here is very, very accepted.
It really is.
Hikers are like, yo, what's up? It's just like, you know, when you tell someone that you mountain bike, like it's no big surprise. You see mountain bikes all over the place, and you see that in the parks that there's more acceptance of it as a cool hobby.
Yeah,
what have you seen in the Northeast?
I have not seen much of a shift. You know, we do have the Phoenixville Bike Park. That's great, but like the sentiment toward mountain bikers, I feel like it's a little bit more relaxed, but it's nothing like what you experience in Arizona. There's just too much. There's like so many user groups, number one, but then there's just like, there's history everywhere. And then there's so much private land ownership. And then there's everyone's so happy over here. You know, there's a lot of money, you know, and the historical society, like there's just a lot of money that's happening. And I haven't seen much of a shift. I mean, it's not a good thing. Mountain biking it's so good for the soul, you know? And it's like mountain bikers, at least on the East Coast, they get a bad rep. And it's like, I don't know that that's fair. You know, like if I get bit by a dog, you know, if I'm hiking on a trail and I get bit by a dog, I don't sit there and say, well, you know what? All dog owners are terrible people and we should ban all dogs from the park. But that's what's happening with mountain biking. You know, you get one, and sometimes this can happen by mistake, by the way. It's not always just a bad mountain biker. Sometimes what if something fails and you know, you happen to run into a hiker or you scare a hiker and that hiker happens to be in a very high position.
Or they have headphones in and they don't hear you
coming.
Oh
my gosh, the headphones. Yeah, exactly. But then like suddenly that person thinks that all mountain bikers are irresponsible. Like that's not cool. You know, that's not cool. And that's what's happening over here on the East Coast. I feel like, has it gotten a little bit more lax? Maybe. I mean, this is probably more of a question for our listeners. I don't feel like that much has changed. Although I will say that the trail advocates have done a great job. You know, for me, I have Bamba and I have Berks Trail Works. And these guys and gals have really been pushing mountain biking and they have been making progress. And I know it's painfully slow. I know it. And God bless them for going at this. It's not easy, but they've been making some headway, man. They've been making some headway.
Well, you gotta look at Skyline at Mount Penn. That was a relatively recent project. That is a perfectly expertly built jump line on county soil, or however you would say that. And then you got to look at Birdsboro and what Burke's Trailworks has been doing there, with friendly land managers and building sustainable, awesome trails.
Yeah.
So, these are places obviously that are in, very specific to the Philadelphia area in Pennsylvania. But listeners, let us know, where do you live? How are you finding the trail access? Is that something that you think about? Who belongs to their local chapter of IMBA? I donate to all those sorts of things, just to give mountain bikers a voice, whether it be in local or even in federal or state politics. Give us a little bit of a voice that these are we're out here and advocating for mountain bikes. It's something that we love to do. And of course the bike companies are involved in that sort of thing as well. Anyone that's involved in mountain biking, is motivated to keep trails open, but also to open new and cool trails.
Yeah. I think it would be really easy for a non-mountain biker, and maybe some mountain bikers too. I think it'd be really easy to say, well, if it's a legal trail, you just shouldn't ride it. I think it's so, obviously, right? But like you said, some of these trails, they all of the trails, they all started illegal. Somebody made a trail on land, and I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't know what to say. It's one of those things where I do try and make a judgment call, and I do feel like I have responsibility, to the mountain bike community. We talked about yesterday that's so funny. We talked on a previous podcast about me being ultra compassionate, to riders. That stuff weighs on me.
Yeah.
For me, I have extra pressure because I have a YouTube channel, and I really do my best to do some research beforehand of hey, are these trails legal? Am I allowed to film here? That's not a pressure that a lot of people have to deal with, but there is the Strava pressure. There is the social media pressure when you post a video or a picture of illegal trails, right? So you don't have to be a YouTuber to feel the same pressure that I'm talking about right now, No,
that's an excellent point. I have been with you several times when we've gone to a trail system, and maybe you had a sense of that beforehand and you tried to ask people, and some people say it's okay and some people say it's not.
Yeah.
And so, where does that leave you? I think about the Frederick watershed and the push trails there. That was this in Frederick, Maryland. There's these great trail system. They had what's called the push trails, which was just several different lines of just awesome jumps and drops and wooden features and gnar. And it was just kind of out there that the local government didn't want you riding them. Man, we got our butts down there to ride them as soon as possible before they got shut down. And they were awesome.
Yeah.
And I think they did shut them down. I think they did bulldoze or try to close some of those. And anyone that's still riding them and, might be guys, don't talk about that. No, we don't want anyone to know. And, so you have your kind of your secret spots, but those trails were awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. We upped our game, with those trails. We did some of the biggest drops, at that time. That was some of our biggest accomplishments, hitting some of these drops and these gaps. And oh man, they were building some amazing, amazing things. And the thing is, there's a quality to that. And again, this sounds like I'm in full support of rogue trail building. I'm not, but man, I got to tell you, when you take
I was,
when you take the strings off of these creators and you allow them to build, man, the stuff that they come up with is diabolical. It's some of the skinnies to a rock, and then it goes into a gap, and then it's crazy wild. It's so difficult. It's so challenging when you go through the proper networks, the proper paperwork. A lot of those things you can't do. A lot of times they'll say, no, you can't have a gap jump. It's got to be a tabletop. No, we can't do this skinny that's 8 feet in the air. God forbid someone fall off of it.
Right.
I get that.
No, they would never approve that stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
I get that. But if you want to hit that stuff, if you want to do that stuff, these are the guys that are building it,
for you and me, and I think the bulk of the people listening, if we were to go and ride that stuff and fall and break an arm, then, I broke my face at the bike park. I didn't sue the bike park. Well, it wasn't the bike park's fault.
Right.
This is a ride at your own risk, but it really only takes, maybe there's someone out there, and we've seen people on some of these jump lines that should not be there, that are not ready to be there, or on the wrong bike, don't have the right equipment, aren't wearing a helmet. I'm at desert trails. I see kids not wearing helmets all the time.
Don't even get me started.
What's happening here?
Oh, my Lord, yeah.
So, it only takes one kid to fall and the parents to then sue the county. What are these bike trails even doing here? It's too dangerous. I guess that's the problem is the litigiousness of it, the legal aspect of it, or the cost of having to helicopter someone out. Who's going to pay for that? If someone doesn't have insurance, does the county have to pay for that, or the municipality? I don't know. Listeners, let us know. What is the big concern?
I think where I fall on the illegal trail is it's like there's a specialness to how raw a natural trail is, and you don't get that with a man-made built trail. You know what I'm trying to say? When it's a machine trail, it has a different feel.
Machine. Right.
Yes. It has a different feel. You get onto one of these raw trails and it just has there's an attitude about it, and it's hard to replicate that by hey, let me build a rock feature, that makes complete sense. When you get onto some of these ridiculously hard raw trails, it doesn't make sense because it wasn't intended to be there. Yeah.
It's the punk rock of mountain bike trails, it's supposed to break the rules.
Exactly. And I love that. I love that challenge, and you can't get that from a man-made trail. No matter how many times you try and place a rock, you can just tell, you can feel it has it doesn't have the same attitude to it. It doesn't have the same the teeth. I got to be a really good tech rider because I'm riding trails like that, that are raw. It sharpened my teeth on it. And they weren't all illegal, obviously. I don't ride that many illegal trails,
what would you consider an illegal trail? You know what I mean? I know there's a lot of trails that we had some of our favorite trails in Mount Penn that we would ride that were awesome. And I don't know that they were actually illegal. They were just built. They were there. They weren't approved.
That's true.
And so we would ride them.
Yeah.
And, maybe they were on the maintenance schedule for the organization that was keeping up those trails. And so, unless someone went out and really maintained them, then, but if everybody started to ride it, now the ones that we used to really were really high level. So
yeah,
it was us and Dane, riding these trails.
Yeah. So, you know what, Danny, that's a really good point you're bringing up, the distinction, right? Now that I think about it, I don't ride illegal trails that are labeled illegal.
Right.
If I see a
it's
no
not
bike
you're
sign,
lifting your bike over it's not
right.
you're lifting your bike over a gate and being F these guys, I'm riding this anyway.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't do that. I never do that. If there's a sign that says no bikes, or there it's clearly blocked off, someone fell a tree, onto the trail on purpose.
That's
I
important.
do not ride those trails that. It's okay, that's obvious, right? But there are trails that I know aren't sanctioned. They're not legal trails. There's no bike sign on it, but I know that, they're not sanctioned trails. It doesn't mean that no bikes are allowed. It doesn't mean that no hikers are allowed. It's just, it's a trail that exists that hasn't been sanctioned. I don't know how else to say that.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important distinction. At least for me, it is when I see a sign, it's okay, I stay away from that. I'll respect that. I don't want to be the person that it's yo, there was a sign there and you clearly broke the law. You clearly rode that trail. And now we're taking mountain biking away for everybody because you wanted to be a jerk face. I don't do that. I think that's a pretty easy one. Am I talking out of both sides of my mouth? Person that
you really are, but
yeah.
I think I understand what you're saying because it's a fine line, and it really just comes down to what you feel is matches your stance on life. It really matches your energy, matches how you feel about just how does it make you feel?
Yes.
And I'm a person that personally I am honest about everything. I'm a man of integrity. I am a person of integrity. That's how I live my life. And if I'm doing something that I know is illegal or it might cause harm to someone else or might cause emotional trauma to someone else, and then I'm going to try to avoid that.
Yeah.
I want to feel good about what I'm doing.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear what our listeners have to say. I'm very curious. I know we have a lot of trail builders, and maybe we can get a trail builder on for a future pod. That would be interesting to kind of get that kind of a perspective of like how they feel, or even land managers, how they feel about this stuff. That it's a really sensitive subject, and it's hard to take it's not like I'm going to be on this side of the fence and you're on that side of the fence. There's a lot of gray in between.
Nuanced.
Yeah. And so we're trying to take a stance, but it's difficult. It's like it's situational many, many times. So it's tough. I'm curious to see what people have to say about this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we have a lot of gratitude for the trails that are open, the trails that we do ride.
Yes.
And I will say some of the trails that they've built around here in Arizona are gnarly and have that rawness. I don't know how much of moving rocks goes into it, but it's pretty cool. And so I have a lot of gratitude to all the trail builders and all the associations and all the people and everyone that makes mountain biking so awesome and of what it is. But that's not my mountain bike gratitude of the week. Oh. My mountain bike gratitude of the week is an email that we received from Jason in Salt Lake City.
Okay.
And I just thought this was really cool. And Jason wrote, after being away from mountain biking for 15 years and recently coming back, on Memorial Day, I went to St. George, Utah, and rode some trails there. Climbing desert tech isn't my strong suit, but I was doing better than I expected. At one particularly tricky spot on Zen Trail, I was about to grab the brakes and hike the bike up the remainder of the climb when a voice entered my head, honking about how we're infinite and you can do this. There are no limits. Stay loose. Go for it. You got this. And suddenly I had a surge of energy and completed the climb without so much as a dab. Whether you know it or not, you guys are having an impact, and I appreciate you. Ride on.
Jason.
How awesome is that?
Yo, Jason. Come on now. That is awesome. Although I have to say, if you continue to get us talking in your brain for other things outside of mountain biking, you might want to see a specialist about that. Probably not good.
If you ask us questions and we start answering back with anything other than you got this, and then you might want to see someone. Yeah, the voice in your head. I like how he said a voice entered in my head honking about how we're infinite.
Yeah.
Is that what we sound like? A couple of geese? Honking? Jason's like, I wrote something really nice and now you guys are criticizing me.
What did we just do?
No, I think it's awesome. I just like that we're infinite and you got this and there's no limits and we're unlimited and anything is possible and the skills are in there. And then he got it. I got this. You know what? I got this. I don't need to unclip. I don't need to hike. This is in me.
Yeah.
And that's mountain biking. That's life. We are so much more than we realize. Yeah. And that's what Sage and I are here on this journey, realizing ourselves and also sharing with everybody. So getting that email from Jason, I just thought was awesome. We are infinite. We are unlimited. Let's see what happens. Just get there. He didn't go there. He didn't go to Zen Trail saying, I'm going to do this climb. He just got there and he had no expectations and it happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Jason, that is awesome. That is really, really cool. My mountain bike gratitude goes to Keaton and Jose, who Keaton, I asked him to go to the Blue Mountain Bike Park with me. So, he's such is he a great jumper and he's such a good dude. And then when I was there, I met Jose and he was just, oh man, what a talented guy. Having those two as like a mentor almost, and we're getting different perspective. Keaton's giving me like a jumping from a dirt jumper's perspective, and Jose's giving me a perspective like he races downhill enduro races. So he has a totally different approach to jumping. And wow, so much gratitude for all the knowledge that they were able to bestow, I guess that's the right word, onto me. I don't know how much of it I retained, but it was really helpful. It's nice to be able to just follow somebody. It's one thing to get advice. It's nice to be able to follow somebody and just be like, okay, they're going to do this. I'm going to do this, and I don't want to think about it. I follow. It's hard for me to follow Keaton because he's just such a booster. Like he just skies so high.
He's a total boost master.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. But Jose, he jumps very similar to the way that I do. So it was very nice to be able to just follow his wheel and just trust that, okay, this is the right speed for this jump. I got to tell you, man, I didn't clear all of them. all at once, but I cleared each one at least one time, which,
That's awesome.
Oh, it was so
Awesome.
great. It was so great. Oh, yeah, man. What a great time. So
These
thank
jumps
you.
on Upper Empire.
Oh,
Yes. Gratitude, Jose, Keaton. These jumps on Upper Empire that Sage is talking about are humongous.
oh
They
my
are
Lord.
so tall,
Yeah.
so sendy. They each have their own speed. They're fairly technical for bike park jumps.
Yeah.
Where you have some you have to pedal into, some you want to brake check. But that's awesome that I'm so excited for you. How much did you feel like the bike made a big difference? And normally you don't like to follow people, so it's interesting that you were also following people.
Yeah, there's I don't know. I can't answer the bike question. I don't know. I'd have to go there with the Ibis, and ride it consecutively back to back to be able to answer that question, because really the biggest change isn't the bike, it's me. I've been putting in hours and hours and hours at places like Phoenix Bike Park and on Skyline. So
putting the work in. Absolutely.
Yeah. So to me, I think it's less about the bike and more about me trusting myself, trusting my skills. It's stuff that we talk about all the time. And you're right. I don't like to follow, but on things like jumps, I think it's a little bit different for me. Like, I don't like to follow on tech because I'm pretty good at tech and I like picking my own lines. I don't have to worry about that with jumping. With jumping for me right now is just about getting the right speed, and it's if I don't have to think about how to get that speed, and I can just be like, okay, just stay behind this person, you'll be okay. That's really helpful for me. That is equivalent to like singing a song. It gets my mind off of like, don't touch the brake, da, da, da. I don't have to worry about don't touch the brake. It's like, I just keep this distance. We're good.
Okay. Yeah. So were you singing a song or were you able to just clear your mind and go?
Yeah. Yeah. These guys, I just trusted them and we just went, man. It was so, oh man, it just feels so good to like jump, it feels so good to be able to conquer something that you've been just struggling with for so long. And, and we're not done. We're not done. Like, I finished that ride and instantly I was like, I can't wait to get back. And I want to be able to get these jumps to the point where I'm comfortable. And it's like, I'm clearing them all every time. That's where I want to get to, not expectation. That's a goal.
Yeah. I think it's awesome. I think it's happening. I think it's incredible. Your jump journey is so quick. It's been unlocking and you're being patient with it. Yeah. It's just awesome. And jumping is really fun. And we're jack of all trades. Like we like doing everything. When it comes to mountain biking, we like doing just about everything. And jumping is really fun. And overcoming something like that is progression. Yeah. And progression feels really good. Doing something new feels really good. But being in the air, there's something really kind of special about it. That's just another level. Did you stop and look at the features or the jumps? How did you feel on that big drop going into Upper Skyline?
The big drop.
Did anything give you pause?
Yeah, the big drop. It's funny because the big drops are actually one of the things I love, and I actually led Jose and Keaton. They were uncomfortable with it. Keaton had never done it, and Jose hadn't done it in a very long time. And I was like, well, I'm pretty confident in the speed, and I me and my trail memory. So I actually led them through. So it was a nice trade. I was able to get from them the jumps, and they were able to get from me the drop. And the only issue that day was how windy it was. And so we actually had to time when we took off for the drop according to how the wind was blowing. And it was interesting because I don't know if most mountain bike parks do this, but all along the drop, they had these like flags. And so you could, and there were several of them all going down the land, the strip of the, what do you call that? The wooden, what is that? The wooden bridge that leads you to the drop? Like, there was just flags hanging and you could see the wind blow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What direction?
Line. Yeah.
Yeah. It was fantastic. So
that's cool.
It was amazing. Yeah. So we would just, we sat at the landing, waited for the wind to die. As soon as it died, we just, boom, went off the drop. It was that windy that it was.
Every run you had to stop because usually we just roll into it.
Yeah. So once you get a feel for it, then as you come up off the step up, then you have to do a quick gauge. You have to quickly look at those flags. Is this something that, we can do? Is it too windy? If it's too windy, then you have to turn off or just hit the brakes. And we talked about that. Like, we're like, listen, if it's too windy, we're pulling off or we're stopping. So everybody's on board. No one's like, oh, I didn't know you were going to stop. Like, no, everybody's on board. The person that is in the front is going to make the decision of whether they're pulling off or stopping. So it was really cool.
Yeah, I don't need an extra decision being made like that. You know,
Right?
like that's another thing you have to deal with. But did you do a move on the drop, on that big drop? Did you do a table or a bar turn?
No. That is something that I do want to work on. I do want to work on putting a move. I noticed that Jose does that. I don't know how helpful that would be because it's not something that I struggle with. You know, at that point, it would be just something to look cool. And man, would that look cool?
Yeah.
Now for the jumping, like I use the move to actually make me feel comfortable. It gives me something to do.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Let us know, listeners, if you're putting a move into the drop. So,
yes.
All right. What's your mountain bike tip of the week? That's awesome, dude. I am so stoked for you. That was only your first time there this season. Like, you know, like absolutely unlimited. And just really cool. And everybody, you're coming with us. We're all unlimited. Anything's possible. Skills are in there. Let's see what happens. I love it. Mountain bike tip of the week.
Mountain bike tip of the week. I'll keep this quick. I just did a ride with a good friend of mine, Maria, at Green Lane Park. This place is notorious for not drying well. And I don't know if we did this tip before, but man, oh man, was it muddy. And had I known that, I probably wouldn't have ridden the trail, but we were already in it. There was not much you could do. And my tip is, if the trail is muddy, do not go around it. Go through the mud. And I got to tell you, I was covered in mud after this ride, but at least I felt better about not widening the trail. That's the issue. When you go around the trail, then you just, first of all, you extend that mud out, because what happens is that rut gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The swamp gets bigger. Ride right through the center. It sucks. You're going to get muddy, but that's the right thing to do. That's my mountain bike tip of the week.
I think it's very appropriate for this episode where we talk about trails and illegal trails and trails, you know, people looking at trails and saying mountain bikes might be ruining this trail. If you're constantly riding around the mud pit, and you're going to get muddy anyway, but it widens the trail and it goes more into the woods, and the land managers really don't like that.
Yeah.
You know, if you really dig into, I remember looking at the IMBA stuff, the International Mountain Bike Association stuff, and a lot of what they did was education. When it's muddy, go through the middle. You can clean yourself and you can clean your bike afterwards, but just blast through the middle and do not widen the trail. Don't change the trail because of every puddle in there. So it's actually a really, really good point. It's very appropriate for this conversation.
I love it.
Listeners, let us know if you ride through the mud. I mean, you don't need to comment on that. But we do love all of your comments. We do love, and certainly RideandLaugh1 at Gmail. If you want to send us a long form comment like Jason did with a picture or anything like that. If you have any questions or comments for other podcasts, we love it. If you're still listening, you're definitely one of us. We appreciate you. Make sure you rate and subscribe on your podcast player, auto download. We're accepting super thanks if you want to support the podcast. And on YouTube, absolutely leave us a comment. Watch till the end, all that good stuff that helps the algorithm. Tell your friends about the podcast as well. We're growing. We're all in this together. Everybody have a fantastic week and a great week of riding. Ride and laugh.
I'll see everybody.